Welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. If you want to keep up to date on all things Kansas City Royals, you can go check out royalsreview.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and on TikTok at Royal Rundown Pod for breaking news, reactions, and much, much more. So, Jeremy, before I bring you in here, which I am bringing you in here right now, so this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I have some housekeeping stuff to take care of, okay?
Okay.
So, number one, Jeremy, number one, you are the co-host of, according to Chartable, we rank 136th in America on baseball podcasts. So, woohoo!
That seems pretty good. I'll take it.
I
mean, unless you're about to tell me that there are 136 baseball podcasts, in which case
there are 100. There are 136 Royals baseball podcasts, actually. So we got some work to do.
Well, all right.
I'm kidding. I got that little update for the first time today. Secondly, we are way behind on Spotify Q&A responses.
Well, whose fault is that, Jacob?
Way behind.
Who does those?
I'm supposed to do those.
Yeah, Jacob. I don't do those.
Yeah, I know. That's my bad.
I'm not nearly useful enough for that.
Hey, just in case you didn't know, we post Q&As and polls on Spotify, which you can respond to. And if you respond to the Q&As, then we will read them on usually the following episode. But we've had some scheduling stuff and some pre-planned episodes just haven't gotten a little behind. So sorry, folks. I'm going back a few episodes here. So on our Will Klein interview, I asked, the off season is a great time for interviews. It really is, if you haven't been able to tell. And I asked, who would you like to hear from next? Now, Jeremy, I think you're going to love some of these responses.
Oh, boy.
There's a guy named Hakias who said Chris Bubich.
Oh, yeah. That would be a great interview.
Yeah, it would. Yeah,
definitely should get him on.
Well, there's another person who seconded what you said. David Kim said Brady Singer, Chris Bubich, or Daniel Lynch. So I guess
that one legitimately, I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. And then Royal Rupert, longtime responder, said Tyler Tolbert, calling him the 2024 Kansas City Royals starting center fielder. So that is definitely a very ambitious. What's the word? Ambitious role for Tyler Tolbert, who's not even on the 40-man roster right now.
That is a dream and a half, my friend.
It is, but I like it. And then finally, Zach said, would be cool to continue with minor leagues from every level, getting their experiences and stories about the minors. We hear all the time about the majors, but not so much with minor league baseball. Love the podcast. Well, thank you very much, Zach.
Thanks.
Do appreciate that. And yeah, that is one reason why I try to get the broadcasters and these minor league players on, just so we could hear their stories. Speaking of interviews, on our interview with Steven Zobak, I asked, is the Christmas tree up yet? If not, when is the appropriate time to start the Christmas festivities? Now, Jeremy, I want to get your take before I read these. What's your deadline?
Okay, so I don't put up a Christmas tree.
Okay.
I am morally opposed to seasonal decorations.
Okay.
I'm lazy. I don't want to decorate for just part of the time. That's what that is.
Gotcha.
The good news is, never fear. I do visit my parents for the holidays, and my mom has 2 Christmas trees up in her room. Plus, There's another in the living room, and I'm sure that my siblings each have a Christmas tree up in their room. So I am around plenty of Christmas trees, and my mom leaves at least one of those Christmas trees up that's in her room year round. So
okay. Hey, I will say, Honey is joining the podcast on a late breaking update. Honey, when does the Christmas tree go up?
I think I vary from year to year, but I want to say having a Christmas tree in your room is one of the coziest, sweetest, loveliest things in the world. So don't knock it till you try it. I don't think you're actually morally opposed. I think you're just lazy.
No, yeah,
So,
I mean, I already admitted that.
Right.
Honestly, I'm a little bit like, I really should have said that because I know somebody is just going to hear like the morally opposed part and just stop right there and be like, Hakias hates Christmas. Jeremy hates Christmas. He's anti-religion. He wants to kill us all. And that's I celebrate Christmas. I just can't be bothered to decorate, y'all.
Yeah.
The tree is still very beautiful and it goes up every year.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, usually our holiday tree is like an art project. It has a theme every year, and it's beautifully curated.
Just
I'll put
scaling
that.
that
It's fun to be married to another artist because we
effort
do
level.
interesting things from time to time. But I think deadline December 1st.
Okay. All right. That's the deadline, apparently. All right. Hey, let's get back to the responses because there were, it wasn't quite as Christmas-y in the responses, unfortunately. Luke said day after Thanksgiving is when it's going up. And then Ginger said the Christmas tree stays in the box downstairs until the Thanksgiving leftovers are long gone. So it's not going up anytime soon for our listeners, apparently.
So the thing about Thanksgiving leftovers and my family, when that would never work, is my mom. She cooks Thanksgiving dinner as if there were 60 people coming. And there's 5 of us. And 6, my aunt comes too. There's 6 of us, not 60. So those leftovers take a while.
Yeah. They listen, you start getting creative with some of those Thanksgiving leftovers.
Oh, yeah. My mom's, one of her favorite things to do is make turkey tetrazzini out of the leftover turkey. So that's a cream pasta dish with turkey in it. I don't like it because it's got mushrooms and I hate mushrooms. Mushrooms are the devil, and you will never convince me otherwise.
I would try, but I ain't gonna pressure you, man. Hey, and lastly, I asked on our Sean Murnan interview, which is our most recent episode. Please go check that one out if you have not listened yet. I asked, is daylight savings time kicking anyone else's butt? Because, man, I was feeling it. I was feeling it after that shift, and the Chiefs were playing the very next morning in Germany, so it just compounded that time shift. And truthfully, we got some really good responses on this one, Jeremy. I like these. So Caleb Billings says, I don't know what you mean. I enjoy getting up in darkness and watching the sunset as I eat lunch. Let's see. Luke said, yes, it's the worst thing ever. I've been getting off of work at 5:30 and the day is over. It's ridiculous. Yeah, it is. These winter months are tough. They don't do any favors.
I know this is kind of a cliche, but I've literally been looking at the clock going, it's just got to be about time for bed, right? It's like it's 6:30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've gone to bed early every night since daylight savings, and I'm just completely exhausted.
And then, sorry, let me get to the last response. Rupert said, yes, I'm feeling run down. After listening to Sean, I feel much better. Thanks for the awesome episode. That was a blast. Thank you so much, Rupert. Do appreciate that. And yeah, Sean was great to have on. It's been awesome talking to all the broadcasters so far. If you've missed it, we've talked to John Coxis, we've talked to Kyle Kercheval, and we've talked to Sean Murnan. And we'll get Nicholas Batters on here eventually. We've talked to him before, so I ain't sweating that. But hey,
now here's the real question.
Oh boy,
when are we gonna get Denny on?
Listen, that is the dream, man. That is the dream. I am so looking forward to that.
As if he has no responsibility for ever getting any interviews to happen on this podcast.
I try, man. I try.
No, I mean I'm jabbing myself because you're doing a ton of great work getting us all these great interviews, and I'm just over here like, yeah, I might show up, ask a couple weird questions.
No, man. Listen, we balance each other out pretty well. I'm going to go all baseball all the time, and then you actually talk about the person. So that's really nice, man. Hey, let's speaking of baseball though, let's go ahead and talk about some of that stuff. I know, right? The stick ball. Listen, the there's a few Bobby Witt Jr. related things that we got to talk about. First off, I do want to. It's kind of sad that he's the only representative for the Royals on the All-MLB team, but he is.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
not
would.
surprising.
Yeah, I mean it's not surprising, but it's just like it's like looking back on those seasons. Like, man, I was really taking it for granted when we had multiple Gold Glove nominees every year, or like multiple Silver Slugger nominees and stuff like that. We have two
And
this
multiple
year.
winners several years.
Yeah, exactly. But so hey, I'm looking at this MLB ballot, and listen, Bobby's on the ballot. Go vote for him. You can vote for him at
Bobby
MLB.com. Yep, Bobby ballot, Bobby baseball ballot. You can vote at MLB.com/all-MLB/ballot. I'm looking at shortstop, man, and I'm sorry, but Corey Seager's like gotta have this in the bag.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
1,000 OPS over the whole season with nearly 100 RBIs and a World Series championship.
Man,
Like
and a World Series MVP.
yeah, exactly. It is. He's got to have that in the bag.
Yeah, it was like it's the same thing as when Bobby was up for Silver Slugger. He was one of those Silver Slugger finalists, and it's like, yeah, great, cool. He ain't winning.
So that is definitely one to plug that. But so Jeremy, it took the Royals fandom by storm when we don't see the Royals talked about by Ken Rosenthal very often. That's kind of like an echelon that the Royals don't get to very regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to see that. What were you saying, Jeremy?
I'm just nodding along. Yeah,
Just nodding along.
Everything you've said is true.
So it was. I despised how this was worded, but long story short, the Royals are entertaining the idea of a long-term deal with Bobby Witt Jr. that could cost more than $200 million. Yeah, that's a lot of.
What are some other synonyms that he could throw in there? And it's not his phrasing that bothers me. It's the fact that like he is trying desperately to drum up some positive press for the Royals, and all he can come up with is possibly, maybe thinking about making an offer.
Contemplating this move.
Well, and once they make an offer, will they negotiate if he says no to the first offer? It's just, oh gosh, come on. Like this is what qualifies for big news when it comes to the Royals.
Yeah, and listen, it's the off season. We're in this weird lull before like a lot of the roster decision stuff starts happening. There was a very interesting story by The Athletic today, as well as why free agency might not be as explosive this year either. So that was
that, huh?
Yeah, the Athletic had that.
I wrote the same thing.
I know, right?
I need to go find their article and see if they ripped me off.
I think they did. No, but listen, back to this Bobby report. So
yeah.
First off, that was Ken Rosenthal with it. Ken's, very credible guy. Not everything he says, comes true, but if he says it, I'm usually going to take like, okay, that is what's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, it is hard to see where the Royals would not make an offer at least. He did become the club's first 30-30 player and a 30-49 player at that. And go ahead.
I just look around the league. I see Michael A. Taylor II. I see Ronald Acuna Jr. I see Luis Robert. Is it Luis Robert Jr. or just Luis Robert? I don't remember.
I think it's Luis Robert, isn't it?
Oh, Robert? Is that how you say it? Okay.
I think. Don't take advice from me on pronouncing names.
I was calling it the Colbert show for I don't know how many years. And the guy Corbin Carroll, all these guys, Julio Rodriguez, that are just budding superstars, and their teams lock them up quick. Luis with the White Sox was whatever his last name is. They sign. It was Eloy Jimenez They signed to an extension before they even promoted him. Corbin Carroll signed to an extension before he hit 100 days in the big leagues. Julio got his extension before his first year was done. I mean, and here are the Royals 2 years in. Well, we still got time. Okay, well, nobody else thinks they've still got time. So why do you?
Exactly. And it's not like these teams are only extending out these superstar potential players if they're like contending. Like, I'm sorry, when the Diamondbacks extended Corbin Carroll for 8 years, $111 million before he had 100 days in the MLB level under his belt, mind you, they're like, okay, this is the guy we're going to build around. We're not like, they're not treating it like a free agency addition. They're saying, okay, we're going to lock up this guy, and they're not playing games because they know a paid player is a happy player.
I mean, they were playing games. They were playing games much later than the Royals were playing games. Bam! Got him.
I know this is a two-way talk. The Royals can offer up anything, but the question is, does Bobby actually want to be with this franchise and in the area for a long time? I will say Bobby had a very good interview with 810 Sports there in Kansas City. I understand, Jeremy. He said all the right things. Maybe that's what I should be saying.
He said the things he has to say.
Yeah, and here's the quote.
I mean, Johnny Damon was saying he wanted to stay in Kansas City right up until they traded him because they knew they weren't going to be able to keep him.
Exactly. And yeah, this quote reads very well. It's like, okay, great. He wants to stay here. But it's just one of those things. It's the business side that comes down to this. And I'm sure he would love to stay in Kansas City if they'll pay him when he could get paid somewhere else. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, could you? We've seen the money that guys like Trey Turner and Dansby Swanson got last offseason. Those are just some of the shortstops. Like, it was a shortstop boom last year. I think it was almost $1 billion committed just to shortstops last offseason. And could you imagine Bobby Witt hitting the open market?
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, and that's actually something I am kind of quasi trying to plan on writing this weekend. Okay. But I just sit and think, yeah, that's how much they got. But Corbin Carroll, 8 years, $111 million, right? Yeah. Would you do that deal for Bobby Witt Jr. today?
I would have done it for him last year.
Yeah, you would do that instantly, right?
Yeah. And
the Diamondbacks managed to make that happen. So, and the Diamondbacks didn't look like they were a good team when they did it. So it can't happen. If the Royals are willing, and Julio Rodriguez, they made that very creative offer with him to keep him around for more than a decade, I believe. So if the Royals are willing to get out there and make a real offer, then Bobby Witt can stay. Like, I don't want anyone out there being like, well, Bobby Witt Jr. is obviously going to leave. He's not obviously going to leave. These guys all signed extensions. They're all superstars, and they didn't all come up with teams that looked like they were going to be amazing. So it's just don't give up hope yet. The Royals could still make a good offer to him, but also don't just be like, well, of course Bobby Witt didn't sign. He was never going to sign. Don't think that either. He will if the money's right.
Well, so listen, Jeremy, we both, I'll plug our stuff. We both came out with really good articles this weekend. One, yours titled, "So Your Team Says They Have No Money." And then I also had one come out this morning for Kings of Kaufman titled, "The Kansas City Royals' biggest need is one that cannot be signed, extended, or traded for." And the thing is, they just need to give the fan base a little bit of freaking hope.
Yep.
That's what it is. We need a reason to believe in the team in 2024 and a reason to believe that they're going to try to do things differently and do things better. And, I want to be the eternal optimist. I want to say, you know what? The Royals are going to go out there and at least be in on some free agents. I want them to at least offer some money to guys like Jordan Montgomery and Seth Lugo, not the top guys, but like good quality players that address the issues of this team.
Yeah.
And I think that was another thing that I said last week. I don't have a problem, and I think we'll talk about this later on, maybe next week. I don't have a problem with Zach Greinke coming back for like market, value, something in there.
Oh, okay. So
But
what's
I have
market value is my question.
I don't know. I don't know.
13 million?
I hope not.
That's too much. Is it 5 million? Okay.
Maybe. But here's the flip side of that. I have a problem with them bringing Zach Greinke back and saying that's the solution to the rotation.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, that would be, I mean, that's demonstrably false, right?
Right.
Even
exactly.
when he was healthy in 2023, he was not the solution in the rotation. Even when he was pitching well and healthy, he was not the solution in the rotation. He couldn't go deep into games.
Right.
He
exactly.
gave 4 or 5 innings, which, sometimes you need 4 or 5 innings, and boy, wouldn't mind having, a franchise legend hanging around giving them to you. But you need someone you need to be able to have upside there too. And Zach Greinke offers you a floor. He does not offer you a ceiling.
Yep. Bingo. Royals fans right now need a ceiling because we've seen how low the floor can get.
Ceiling raiser.
Yeah. There you go. Ceiling raiser. And honestly, the extending of Bobby Witt Jr. will raise the ceiling not just for 2024, but it will extend it for the length of that contract, hopefully. So that is why an extension does need to happen sooner rather than later. And also, I mean, like, come on. His value's only going up.
Yep.
Okay.
Imagine if they signed him last year. If they signed him to the big extension last year, like even if he said, "Well, I'm not gonna just take the money for the product I've given you because I'm gonna get better," they would have had to meet somewhere in between his production in 2022 and what he ended up giving them in 2023. He is more expensive now than he was in 2022, which is another reason why the whole, well, they've got time to figure this out thing doesn't ring true, because every year that he puts up 30 numbers or better, that price tag goes up.
Exactly. So
there's a reason why the Diamondbacks said, let's get Corbin Carroll under contract now, 8 years, 111 million. Would he sign 8 years, 111 million after the season? No. He'd want more.
Exactly, because he casually put up a 6 F-WAR season
from left field and right field, not premier defensive spots either. Like, he was doing it with his bat and with his speed.
Yeah. So listen, I'm very much hoping that in the coming weeks we will be talking about a Bobby Witt Jr. extension and how the money breaks down and things like that. But right now, the only signing that we have to talk about is Taylor Clarke avoiding arbitration. Woo-hoo! That is the saving grace for the Kansas City Royals. So let me
give us the deets.
Let me go and give the black and white. Give me 1 second, Jeremy. I know you have a lot.
I wasn't talking for like 15 seconds. I had withdrawal. I'm sorry.
So, according to Andy Rogers, the deal that Taylor Clarke signed with the Royals is worth $1.25 million, which is close to $1 million less than his arbitration tag. So that's a welcoming sign. He was slated to make about $2.2 million. So the Royals got
that's an estimate, right? Not a
right.
Yeah,
that's an estimate, but usually the estimates are estimates are close. There's a reason why they're estimates. And
having a deal that's half the estimate basically is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is. It stinks of like, hey, either get a deal at this number or we're moving on.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he would have made $2.2 million out in the
minor league offer from somebody.
Exactly. So at least here he stays with the major league club. I think fans do forget how good Taylor Clarke was to open the season. In 27 games through early June, he had a 2.7 ERA, and he was just getting guys to swing and miss, and he was getting some soft contact. But then he had some I forget what the injury was. It was some sort of inflammation.
Yeah.
And sorry, excuse me, it was the right elbow inflammation in the summer, and like things just started taking a nosedive. So I get it. You bring him back, you see what you got again, and I don't know, Jeremy, how are you feeling about this move?
Okay, so let me ask you. Taylor Clarke pitches for a different team last year, and the Royals say, we're bringing him in for 1.25. We think maybe we can help him figure it out. You feel pretty good about that deal?
Yeah.
Are you thinking, obviously you're not going, yeah, great deal. They don't need to do anything else. Free agency is done. We're solved. Bullpen's fixed. You're like, all right, cool. A $1.25 million prove it deal. All right, cool.
Right.
That's fine. For a reliever, which is a volatile position. But what the Royals basically went out and got, they got a guy that maybe they can fix. He just happened to have already pitched for them last year. And they got a guy that they kind of know where he's at. There's no surprises there. And at 1.25, he's not closing games. He's not setting them up unless he pitches his way into those roles.
Exactly.
And the thing you have to realize is that for a major league pitching staff, you need depth.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in that bullpen is going to have to pitch. Yep. So you're going to have 8 guys, probably more like 15 guys that are going to rotate some because of injuries in your bullpen. And so having a guy that you know who he is, what he's about, is just, I mean, it's a good thing. Having a little bit of familiarity. You want to bring in some new blood too, and I really think they will. I would be very surprised if they did not bring in at least a handful of relievers to kind of do some competition in spring training, because the bullpen wasn't good last year.
No,
but I get, like, if you're like, this is so frustrating, and if it's the biggest move the Royals make this offseason, then yeah, okay, we have a problem here. But if it's just like, yeah, this is just kind of one of those things that you do when you're trying to create depth for your big league baseball team, then I think it's a perfectly reasonable deal.
Exactly. And I will say this, on these cheap deals, I look forward to the Royals identifying guys who have traits that they can work with, and elite traits at that. So, for example, even with how Clarke struggled down the stretch in the season, he's still ranked in the 98th percentile in chase percentage as a pitcher. Like
that feels like something you should be able to work with. Yeah,
exactly. And his fastball velo is still above average. Just he had a rough stretch, and honestly, that rough stretch lasted about 29 innings. Okay, like if we're talking about a starter having a rough stretch, that's not that long.
Yeah, it's a couple games, 2, 3, 4 games, 5 games, maybe, exactly. I guess.
So, all in all, I'm not like over the moon that they re-signed, that they got a deal done with Taylor Clarke. However, I am glad that they got it done on a discount, and they still retain an experienced arm with good traits that you want to see in your bullpen. Jeremy, any more thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I haven't seen this on the internet, but I feel like somebody's going to say this. This is not the same thing as keeping Hunter Dozier or tendering Ryan O'Hearn after last year. Because like I said, you really need depth. And with Ryan O'Hearn and Hunter Dozier, you're like, well, where do they even play? And you didn't have a good answer for that. And the answer ended up being not for Kansas City pretty quickly. As Ryan ended up getting cut and Hunter got cut. Or Ryan got cut before the season and Hunter got cut shortly into the season. But there's plenty of room for Taylor Clarke to pitch in this bullpen and to not block anybody. Like, this does not stop a Will Klein, for example, from being promoted. It's exactly, you got to have so much depth in your bullpen.
Yeah. And I think that's a great segue, Jeremy. So we do have a couple of very, very important roster building dates coming up this week, actually. We are recording this on Monday evening, and tomorrow, November the 14th, is the deadline to add players to the 40-man roster who would be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, what the Rule 5 draft is it basically pulls together a pool of prospects who have been in a major league organization for X amount of years. So like we all know how Logan Porter took a while to get up to the show. He was Rule 5 draft eligible last year. That pool is something that opposing teams can pull players from and add them to their roster for a certain amount of time and things like that. Basically, it makes sure that teams can't just hoard good players for like 10 years and then deploy them on the major league level. You have to get them to the show eventually. And there are some very, very intriguing names that are in that pool possibly for the Royals, but they have to avoid it tomorrow. I definitely think a guy, Will Klein, he is Rule 5 draft eligible if he is not on the 40-man roster by this time tomorrow.
I would be extremely surprised if they don't put him on the 40-man if he doesn't get picked.
Exactly.
Somebody's going to say, we can stash a reliever in our bullpen.
Yeah, exactly. But there are more complicated cases, such as Tyler Gentry, which, I mean, he's not as complicated, but where does he play? He is Kansas City's number 8 overall prospect in the farm system, but he's an outfielder. Where does he play? But they should add him. He is good enough. Devin Mann, one of the guys, that they got back in the Ryan Yarbrough trade from the Dodgers, did great things as a utility player in the minor league season last year. Been doing it for a while in the Dodger system. Are they going to add him? There are quite a few. Actually, I am omitting a very, very important person, Tyler Tolbert.
Yeah, I was like, sure, I thought Tyler was on there.
Exactly. And like there's a good amount of players who, like, I understand Tyler Tolbert probably isn't going to break camp with the Royals organization or with the Royals major league team, if spring training started today. However, he does have elite enough tools in certain areas that a team will definitely pull him onto their roster and say, we'll just use him as a fourth outfielder and a pinch runner. And we got him for free.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, you gotta look out for it. And sometimes guys show that they are ready. We've obviously seen it with Joaquin Soria and Brad Keller. But also, like last year, the Giants grabbed, didn't it grab Blake Sable? Wasn't he a Rule 5 pick?
I think so.
And, they were like, well, he'll just be the third catcher. And then their guys got hurt. No, Blake Sable is actually pretty good for us. He's fine. Yeah. We'll let him play. So, and it's like, well, if we lose him, they might give him back if, they run out of room. But there's also, like, if he gets hurt and who doesn't get hurt somehow, right?
Yeah.
Right. Then you just put him on the injured list and move on that way. So I would be really like Will Klein and Tyler Tolbert are guys that you absolutely have to add. I think Tyler Gentry's probably up there too. And we've talked in the past that there are plenty of guys the Royals could let go of and not miss. Josh Staumont and Josh Taylor off the top of my head. There's 2.
Right.
So hopefully the Royals get it together. And it'd be nice if they could free up a 40-man spot so they could actually pick someone in the Rule 5 draft too. Because again, there are no guarantees of anything, but you can have success that way. And better to be when your farm system is as devoid of talent as the Royals farm system is, like it's ranked very low. You should be, these guys who are Rule 5 eligible on other teams are probably better than your guys. And I know under Dayton Moore, they didn't want to, our guys are our guys, right? But hopefully JJ Piccolo going to be a little more transactional, as they say.
Hopefully so.
And be like, you know what? Fine. Yeah, we need to improve. Let's go see if one of their guys can help.
Exactly. And this Royal system, after the last wave of prospects graduated, very devoid of talent at like the AAA level. There are some good bats and some great arms in, just breaking into AA and high A, but they're a couple years away. So if this Royals team needs some reinforcements, they might want to look in the Rule 5 draft. But like you said, they have to free up some spots even to be a contender in the Rule 5 draft. So I can't remember when the draft is happening off the top of my head, so I do apologize. But the second important date that fans need to know about is this upcoming Friday, November 17th, which is the deadline to tender players on the 40-man roster a contract for the 2024 season. Jeremy, go ahead. Sorry.
It's December 6th is when the Rule 5 draft is.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. So the non-tender deadline is going to be very, very interesting, I think, because there are several guys on this 40-man roster right now who are probably replaceable, or, you know, they have a guy who they see more in. You talked about Josh Stalmont and Josh Taylor. Those are just a couple of guys. If the Royals add a guy like Tyler Tolbert to the 40-man, well, what does that mean for Samad Taylor? If, you know, Logan Porter, I love him. But right now he's a third catcher on this 40-man roster. Will they want to keep him, or will they just hope for the best? I don't know. There's a lot of interesting cases here, and I'm not saying that there are guys. Or, I'm sorry, Jeremy, I had a thought and then I lost it. Were you going to say something?
I hate when that happens.
I know, right?
The other thing about Logan Porter is MJ Melendez is still on this roster. So one thing I'm curious about is, do they want him to catch ever again? If so, then Logan Porter is even more expendable, because Freddie Fermin looks like he's a guy. Salvador Perez is still here for now, at least. And if MJ can catch, there's just not a lot of reason to have Logan Porter around, especially if you just are like the break glass in case of emergency guy. Like, you've still got plenty of, you can bring up anybody for that role, because you're in an emergency and you just that's what you do.
Oh, but yeah, I'm sorry. I'm looking
still
through.
Here.
Yeah, that he is. He is not on the 40-man. I want to clarify that.
Yeah.
All in all, there are several guys who posted negative WAR seasons for the Royals last year who are still on this 40-man roster. And I think that I understand, you know, Taylor Clarke, he's a very polarizing case of this. But there aren't as many players like him where you could say, okay, he has a great tool in this, he just needs to retool that. There are some guys who just stunk last year with no redeeming factors. And so those are guys who are definitely non-tender candidates and will hopefully open the door for some Rule 5 acquisitions, free agency, or trade acquisitions. However it happens, we just want the organization to get better. Can you agree with that, Jeremy?
I think I can. I think I could get behind that.
Amen. So I want to say this now. We will be back on the podcast tomorrow night to react to any of the moves that are made, because I'm expecting it's not going to be like earth-shattering moves, but it'll probably be a group of about 6 transactions, I'm thinking.
You think?
So
well, I was just thinking, what if the Royals don't do anything?
Oh my God.
And then we're like, all right, we're here to do our special early podcast for the 40-man roster changes, and they did nothing.
I will let you know how that podcast goes, because it will be very, very negative. Like, I'm sorry. I understand that the Royals farm system is not amazing right now, but if they left their number 8 prospect and number 25 prospect exposed, and they're like number 26, Devin Mann is ranked in the top 30 as well. If they left multiple ranked prospects exposed to the Rule 5 draft, that is a whole nother issue that we need to discuss. That is, so especially that will be worthy
because,
of,
as we noted, there are guys that they can drop off for the 40-man that they would not miss. And there are guys on the 40-man that they can probably drop off and outright to AAA Omaha and be okay.
Exactly. So definitely looking forward to seeing what moves that they make tomorrow. If you want to get the news right away, you can follow us on Twitter or on TikTok at Royal Rundown Pod. Also, go check out royalsreview.com. Max, Jeremy, and the team over there have been doing a great job keeping things up to date regarding the Kansas City Royals. Jeremy, I don't want to keep us here forever, but I just want to say kudos on your piece over the weekend. I very much enjoyed that read. I thought it was very like, you know what?
Go ahead.
What were you saying? Go
ahead. I was just gonna say it was really exciting to just have kind of two interests of mine collide like that, because obviously I work in the tech sector, and I follow video games at least as closely as I do baseball, and I follow the industry, not just the games. So to have an opportunity to take some of what I've learned from following the tech industry and the video game industry and apply it to baseball was just a really rewarding opportunity. And I hope that I was able to help people kind of understand where some of this stuff is coming from and what it means a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think you put that forward very well. And we always talk about Royals Review and the community over there that just make it a very special site. Your comment sections are usually very volatile, I think is the word that I'm looking for.
I can't imagine why that might be. I don't know. I don't know why people have a lot to say when I write articles.
But I would definitely say go read Jeremy's article. It'll be linked in the podcast description. Go check that out. Join the comment section and post your thoughts. Jeremy, anything else before we move on?
In fairness to me, even when I don't write about polarizing topics, I feel like I get everybody just coming for me. Like,
yeah,
as far as I could tell, like, it's been pretty consistent across Royals fandom. I mean, obviously there are some people who would not like to trade Brady Singer or who would like to trade Bobby Witt Jr. But when I wrote that article, like trade Brady, keep Bobby, a lot of people were just coming after me for that one too. So it's like, I don't know, something about me just draws controversy.
You are a bug lamp of controversy. You are the flame. You are the flame to the Royals fandom mods, if you will.
Oh my gosh. I've never been compared to a bug zapper before. I'm not sure I ever wanted to be. It's a new one. All right.
I couldn't think of it.
I mean, I cannot fault the analogy.
Oh my goodness.
Now I'm a bug zapper. All right.
Well, hey, let's go and wrap this stuff up before it falls off the rails too much more with some Royals reviews. Jeremy, I did not prep you, but do you have a review for this evening?
I do. I have a couple, so I'll save one for next time.
Okay. Well, hey, go ahead and give us your review, my man.
All right. Just to make sure, I have not yet done Tomo-chan as a girl.
I don't think so.
That one? Okay. Tomo-chan as a girl. It's a slice of life anime. It's very cute. It is about a teenage high school girl named Tomo, who is a tomboy and like strong and knows like martial arts. So like she, to the point that she's in the boys club for karate because she's too strong for any of the girls at school. And so she's kind of a tomboy. She's all this stuff, but she's kind of got a crush on her neighbor, who they've been friends with forever, and he's a boy, and she's worried that she doesn't see him as a girl. Or she's worried that he doesn't see her as a girl. So, you know, just kind of slice of life rom-com shenanigans. Very cute. I'm having a good time with it, and it's just kind of a nice bit of escapism, I guess, where it's just like, let's not worry about politics. Let's not worry about good and evil or powering up or all these shenanigans. Let's just a little low stakes, like and it becomes obvious very early on that they both like each other, but they're both afraid to say anything. So it's just like very low stakes, very just like, let's have a good time, let's hang out with some weirdos.
Okay, all right, that does something. Can you say the name again?
Tomo-chan is a girl.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. I do apologize, but you're getting 2 plugs in a review for the price of 1. today for me. So
Okay.
first plug I want to do is Adopt a Minor Leaguer. Please go check them out on X. So one of the things that they do is they put together a plaque commemorating a player's debut. And the most recent one that they put together was Logan Porter. They just kind of crowdsource money and they put together a plaque, delivered to the player, and say, "Hey, this is so you have something to remember your debut by."
Oh, that's
And
great. I
next
love
up
that.
is Tyler Cropley. And the Logan Porter one kind of went by fast after a while because Logan Porter had so many fans ahead of his debut, things like that. I would very much, if you have the funds and a giving heart, please go donate to that for Tyler. That's a very important thing, in my opinion,
Where do we
to
do this
try and
again?
help. What'd you say?
Where do we do this again?
It's under Adopt a Minor Leaguer on
Adopt a
X.
Minor
They
Leaguer.
have they have all the donation links and more information there. So please go check them out. Number 2 is friend of the podcast, David Lesky. Please go follow his Substack for some very good Royals breakdowns and analysis. He does have a paid tier of his Substack now, which I believe is still on sale, and it is definitely worth the yearly chump change that he asks from you. So please go check it out. And then finally, my review is FX trying to play Marvel movies on cable. So I just want to say this. I was sitting down on Saturday. It was a long weekend. I stayed up here in Maryland, didn't go home. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and write. And I busted out like 3 stories. And I put on FX because they had, I think it was like Avengers Age of Ultron on. I was like, okay, you know what? This is a good little background movie. I've seen this before. And I'm like, okay, I wonder what's next. Are they going to go in chronological order? They skipped to Avengers Endgame. And it was very jarring to go from like the second Avengers movie to like 8 years later, I think, in the timeline to Avengers Endgame. It was also really sad because if you've never seen Avengers Endgame, which it's been out for a while, so no spoiler alerts. It opens with Hawkeye's family like disappearing out of thin air, and it's just very sad. So I wasn't ready for that, Jeremy, and I didn't like them skipping like 6 movies. Could you imagine if they did that with Harry Potter?
Oh boy. I gotta tell you, I watched Endgame in theaters. That was the last Marvel movie I saw in theaters, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because the pandemic came around shortly thereafter, I believe. And I don't have plans to ever rewatch that movie. I did not care for it. But that scene when everybody finally comes back on your left, gives me chills every time.
I know, right?
I just go look it up on. Sometimes I just go look it up on YouTube. I'm just like, let me watch that scene. I do that. I do it with that one, and I do it with what's his face, the Thor Ragnarok. What are you, the god of hammers? And then they start playing Foreigner, and boom, he's out there like ready to go, just striking lightning on people. Oh, it's a good time. That should be one of my off-season projects, is like top X moments in the MCU.
I like that. I think another off-season podcast is going to be us talking about Loki, man, because it was.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right? But hey, that is for a.
I love Loki season 1. Loki season 1 is terrific.
That was great. It was awesome. Season 2, though, not really. All right, hey, before we start hitting mosquito tones over here, let's go ahead and get on out of here. You can follow Jeremy on X still, I believe, at Hakias. That is Hokius. You can also follow me there at Jacob Milham KC. However, here's another plug for you. I will say, X is the brand losing 90% of its value, while Threads just hit 100 million active monthly users. So I might be making the migration. We'll see.
I can't do it.
I know.
I just got
I
a
know.
follow
All right.
on Twitter from one of my favorite video game writers. I can't leave now.
Oh, I know. Why not both? Both is good. But hey,
Because I can
again,
barely keep up with Twitter.
true. Isn't that the truth? But hey, if you want a one-stop shop for where we're actually going to interact with you, go check out the Spotify Q&As and polls. We will be over there. We will read your responses to this episode's question on the next
Eventually,
episode.
someday, probably.
Jeremy, it only took me 2 weeks to get to yours, okay? You're just mad because you responded to it. All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get on out of here. We will talk to you tomorrow. But as always, thank you for the support. And until next time, go Royals.
I'm just saying. I mean, you can respond like that. I'm just saying.